In my opinion, again, this is just my personal opinion, not a recommendation. I do think that we're looking at a floor around the 50s, sort of low to mid 50s potentially. And then I think as things stabilize, the Feds have another couple meetings. They've got one in June. They've got another one at the end of July. I think maybe we'll see some potential cuts in July or September, maybe 50 basis points. We'll see. And I think that then kicks off a little bit of a run, which could affect the equities markets and crypto as a whole.
Kevin Maloney returns to the show. He is a CEO of iTrust Capital. We'll be talking about updates for the Bitcoin market as well as Kevin's updated outlook for the economy, inflation, and macroeconomic variables driving gold and Bitcoin. Welcome to the show. Welcome back, Kevin.
David, thanks for having me back. It's good to see you again. We had a good, colorful, fun conversation several weeks ago.
We did. We spoke exactly a month ago, 5 weeks ago. We spoke on April 3rd, rather. And at the time, the Bitcoin price was just over $70,000. And it just reached its peak not too long before that. The concern from investors at the time was whether or not Bitcoin could sustain that rally. As we know, it didn't. And actually, if people watch that interview that Kevin and I did in April, Kevin said that there would be a minor pullback. So click up here or in the description down below to check out that interview. And you were right. It pulled back to 60,000, well, below $60,000 at one point, and now today we're back at $65,000. What's your update now?
Yeah, thanks for having us, David. It's good to be here and talk to your your audience. We are excited about sort of what's transpiring in the crypto arena just as a whole. I think there's a lot of cash on the sidelines. I think inflation looks like it might be coming down a bit, a little bit of soft landing. If you look at the latest CPI numbers, if you look at some of the contributing factors, it looks like things are under control. I think people are cautious. I think there's capital on the sidelines. I think people want to participate. We're seeing a lot of interesting things happen. I'm not one that's big on predictions. I'm usually wrong, but I think that we're going to see a little bit more volatility. That my entry point is on Bitcoin is around 33,000. I bought some last time we talked back in the fall of 23. I also bought some at 63,000. So my range is 33 to 63. It's not a recommendation. I'm not an investment advisor. We don't make money on commissions. Do your own research, but there's some attractive entry points in there for certain individuals that are looking to participate. You have to figure out what's good for you. I do think there will be another 10 to 20% potential pullback, and then I'm really excited about the next 18 months.
So you're looking at what, 10 to 20%? What does that translate to?
Yeah, I think that gets us in the. I think there's in my opinion, again, this is just my personal opinion, not a recommendation. So don't go out at the farm, but I do think that we're looking at a floor around the 50s, sort of low to mid 50s potentially. And then I think as things stabilize, the Feds have another couple meetings. They've got one in June. They've got another one at the end of July. I think maybe we'll see some potential cuts in July or September, maybe 50 basis points. We'll see. And I think that then kicks off a little bit of a run, which could affect the equities markets and crypto as a whole.
In 2021, when Bitcoin reached its peak at 61,000, it quickly corrected to somewhere in the 30,000s. Okay. Then it ran up again in late 2021, November. That's when it hit its then peak of 69,000. And then it came crashing down over the course of 6 months or so to about 14,000, 15,000. Right. So it basically in the prior peaks and in 2017 as well, Bitcoin has crashed by more than 50% every single time. And I asked people back then the same question I'm going to ask you: why couldn't it correct another 50, 60% again? And, the answer is obviously yes, it could, but unlikely because of institutional capital flowing in. Do you agree with that argument that this time is different?
Look, I'd love to be able to say there is absolutely a floor. It's 50,000 and we're not going to go below, but that would be silly.
Yeah.
There is a lot of institutional support. We saw some really big things happen this year. We had approvals of ETFs. Those launched. We had massive inflows of dollars come in from individuals and retirement assets around the planet. We saw the Bitcoin halving. We also saw some inflation numbers, even as recently as this week, look slightly more attractive. That it looks like it's coming down a bit. And I think a fourth factor that'll affect those things are the Fed easing, which could happen July or September timeframe. June, probably not going to see much activity. That doesn't mean the institutions won't sell. So while there's a lot of buying support, which generally could help pricing, don't forget, sometimes institutions as well need to take profits off the table to pay out pension plans and individuals for distribution. So as quickly as it can go up, it absolutely can go down. It feels like the floor has risen from the past. It feels like it could be in that sort of high 40s, low 50s range. I do think there's some potential volatility ahead. But the institutions, right? They can affect things in a big way, but they don't forget sometimes have to take profits off the table, and that affects pricing.
You've worked with a lot of institutional investors, in your line of work. You used to be at PIMCO, so you're well aware of the institutional mindset. What would drive more institutional demand into Bitcoin in 2024 and perhaps next year and beyond?
Well, getting regulatory clarity is really important. So, I mentioned previously we met with the Securities Exchange Commission at our office here in Irvine, California. We had an almost 2-hour discussion with the SEC Commissioner Hester Peirce. We had a very open, transparent discussion on ethics, transparency, safety, security, peace of mind across the board. So regulatory clarity is important. We are looking for always to get guidance in that area. I was a former compliance officer, so DNA from inception, the company's DNA included compliance, basically doing things by the book. We worked with the regulators often, FINRA and the SEC. So we try to act like a regulated entity, and we try to do everything by the book. And we also assume we're going to be regulated at some point. As we speak, some of our vendors and partners are regulated. We like that. We wish there was more of that because we came from that business. So regulatory clarity is important for institutions to feel comfortable. The ETF approval was really key. We saw some regulatory clarity around some of the Ripple settlements. What else? We're seeing inflation come down. We may see rates get cut later this year. All of those factors are going to contribute to driving interest. We've got this generally inverse relationship between bond pricing, stock pricing. If the Fed's ease, that might help equities. Maybe bonds drop a little bit, obviously, and that could spur some interest in the sort of the Bitcoin arena as well. I think you might have some charts there, but if you look at sort of the pricing of bonds against Bitcoin, sometimes it tracks, and sometimes it splits and becomes more of an inverse relationship. I think that inverse relationship will continue to grow if we continue this softer landing with inflation, and if we see some rate cuts potentially second half of this year.
Okay, so let's talk about that in more detail. So I'll read you a paragraph from a CoinDesk article. Bitcoin posted its biggest single day gain in nearly 2 months. This was a couple of days ago on the 15th of May. On Wednesday, as weak U.S. economic data raised the probability that the Federal Reserve will join its advanced nation peers in easing monetary policy with rate cuts over the summer months. Okay, so going back to what you said, Kevin, rate cut later this year. Obviously, nobody knows exactly when, but later this year meaning what? The summer months, like the article suggested, or in the fall?
I think the next meeting is June 11th, 12th timeframe. I think we're going to have just a watch and listen approach. I don't think there'll be much activity there. I think there's some potential activity that could happen in late July. And I certainly believe in the September meeting, at the next FOMC meeting in September, I think we'll see some activity there. Again, a few caveats, not predicting, not making recommendations. Everybody here has to figure out where their entry points are, whether it's in gold or precious metals or stocks or bonds or digital assets. Obviously, do your research. But these are sort of the macro and domestic factors that influence, the flow of dollars and people's decisions. And so right now we're having this, educational conversation on what could transpire and the factors that affect pricing and what helps people feel comfortable participating or entering, whether it's institutions or individuals. So Yeah, I do think July's potential for a small cut, and if I'm wrong on that, I think September will be considered. We're seeing the price of groceries come down. We're seeing the price of gasoline come down. That affects all of our pocketbooks, and this means that inflation is coming down. So when we see costs come down, that's a really good thing. It affects us. We will have more dollars to put to work elsewhere, and if the Feds feel like we are coming to a softer landing, I think they will take some action and make a cut. I don't know. If I had to guess, maybe 50 basis points.
Cost of groceries is coming. Do you mean the inflation rate of groceries is coming down, meaning it's going up at a slower rate, or do you actually mean some items are coming down where
Yeah,
you're living?
just cost of living is
Okay.
coming down, which is a really good thing. It's a good indicator that
Okay.
we're everything is falling a bit. CPI index, you could see the numbers that came out. Those are all going in the right direction, which is really important. Back in the day, we used to think labor, unemployment, all these things could drive cost of labor, unemployment could drive inflation, things like that. What we saw in 2021 was really the pandemic was a catalyst, and then that was all exacerbated by the conflict in Ukraine. We're seeing that all feel like it's part of the norm, which is unfortunate, and or behind us, like the pandemic. And we're seeing things sort of. It feels like things are going to stabilize, already priced in, and or just getting used to it.
This is a quote from Jerome Powell, Fed chair. He made this speech in Amsterdam earlier this week. I expect that inflation will move back down on a monthly basis to levels that were more like the lower readings that we were having last year. He went on to further say that I don't think that it is likely, based on the data we have, that the next move that we will make will be a rate hike. It is more likely we will hold the policy rate where it is. Do you agree more or less with his statement on inflation?
Yeah, I do. I think that some of the numbers are indicating it's going in the right direction. I do believe they won't take much action in the next meeting or two. But again, I do believe in over the summer or in the fall, we'll see some easing, and that would be really beneficial to the markets.
Explain the relationship between what we're talking about, inflation, CPI, and the Fed, and Bitcoin. Here's an article from CNBC. The slightly lighter than expected CPI number modestly increased the chance of a rate cut, which is still a strong influencer to Bitcoin price. This is a quote from an analyst at Oppenheimer, Owen Lau, who spoke with CNBC. Why is Fed monetary policy an influencer to Bitcoin price?
As you cut rates, I mean, we typically see this inverse relationship as rates come down. If bond rates are coming down, equities are coming up, and I think that allows people to feel like things are stabilizing and they're going to put more money to work. I'm not an economist. There are many factors at play, but the latest numbers indicate that we're going in the right direction of inflation. And I think there's a lot of cash sitting on the sidelines waiting for a little bit more clarity, see if Feds ease a bit. And I think we're going to see an influx of additional dollars go into the market. I do think we'll see a little bit more volatility in some of the top digital assets. And at some point, I think we're going to see some more entrants participate in the market.
Let's talk about something that I wasn't expecting to talk about this week, meme stocks, but it happened. It happened in as quickly as it came. It's disappearing as we speak. Well, it's fizzling out. GameStop, AMC tumble as meme stock rally fizzles just after 2 days. I'm reading an article. AMC was up a lot. It went from, let me just take a look here, 294 all the way up to above $10, and now it's back down to 480 a share. This is a company that's been dormant for a while. So, what's your read on this craze right now? Is this temporary? Are we seeing a resurgence of the Reddit craze that we saw 2 years ago?
Yeah, I think that people are starting to poke their heads out a bit. We see the Twitter handled Roaring Kitty come alive. That's been pretty dormant itself. I think the last comments out of that Twitter channel were in 21 timeframe.
Yeah.
So that's come alive in a big way. I think collectively about 25 minutes in aggregate of video have been compiled and posted all about potential rising from the phoenix, what's next type of thing. I think the first one was a person sitting in a chair leaning forward like a curious participant with a gaming console. It looked like it was in their hand, and many people took that as are we back? Are we going to get back to this exciting sort of and anomaly occurrences we saw a few years ago? It's amazing how the populist sort of meme community can rise up and really throw a wrench in the short sellers on some of these stocks, GameStop, AMC, a few others. What's interesting is that how one personality can really drive a community to take an interest in certain things. It's that's the most interesting part. And whether GameStop and AMC rise or fall again, I'm curious to see what these individuals think is next, or what they want to take on or combat next. You've got what sometimes feels like the retail masses, populist investors versus Wall Street. I will say that the peaking interest, or the fact that this sort of awakening is coming up this week. Where does that go from other? You've got meme stocks. Does that trickle to meme tokens, and does that trickle eventually to sort of the top 10 digital assets? I don't know, but I think people are curious. I think people are sitting on cash, and I think the participants are looking for an excuse to get behind a few projects or align with the community that is going against the grain.
Speed Capital Management CEO Colt Smead called this.
It's absolutely crazy.
It is gambling. It's back to what I said earlier about we have the biggest casino in the world. And to your point, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of shame on me. And you got to remember, these are young people. These are 40-year-old people like me who are going out doing stuff that is just frankly stupid.
Do you agree? Disagree? No comment?
It's look, I'm just an observer. Obviously, everybody out there should do their own due diligence, and just because you've got a channel or a lot of followers, it doesn't mean you're an expert or have their best interest at mind. So again, I've got more of a conservative background. I think it's interesting to watch. I think it's interesting to see how personalities can drive massive awareness and buying or selling power. That's incredible to me. And I think that can be abused, and it can be risky. But it is interesting to see, more importantly, how some communities are rising up against others to either prove a point, demand transparency, demand clarity, or change rules and regulations. And so that to me is what's driving it. It's not just profits. There's some other things here, but I do think it's interesting to see how it'll trickle down to the rest of the digital assets and other things.
I'm curious actually, because iTrust offers, I believe, 35 crypto assets, right? And so are you seeing similar action, like squeezes or high volume in some of the smaller cap cryptos that you offer?
We there's been some movement. We don't have a lot of meme tokens that we're offering for people's retirement accounts. I mean, there's a couple.
I get it. Yeah.
That, we're even though we're not making recommendations, we still want to be providing assets that we think have some upside. It's not up to us to determine what's a win or what's not, or what's appropriate for individuals. But we do have some large, well-known tokens that are seeing some action. We have some larger, more stable assets that have overtaken others. We've seen Solana overtake XRP in activity, and we've seen a lot of building off of the Solana foundation. So it is interesting. We don't have 50 tokens. We don't have the top 5 or 10 most popular tokens from a meme perspective. So that's hard to track. But we are seeing some activity. We're seeing some dollars go to work, and we're seeing a lot of resurgence. People are coming out of the woodwork to reinvest again in their futures, and people. It's up to people to decide what's best suits their needs.
Okay. Do you personally follow meme stocks? Is that something you look at just for fun?
I do.
Okay. All right.
I do. I mean, I follow all kinds of interesting. I mean, I follow the top 10 largest, most stable assets based on market cap, if you call that stable.
Yeah.
I follow probably 10 meme stocks you've never heard of. Some really funny, interesting ones that if for me it helps. For me, it's more of an indicator on what the masses are looking at, and just the psychology behind it is super interesting. I'm not necessarily a participant in all of those no name high risk ones, but it is fun to watch. I also track 20 sort of in the middle of the road ones of teams and people that I believe have a really interesting mission and vision that could execute. I don't know what the FANG like tokens or coins are going to end up being in 10 years. But I'm curious to see how this all plays out over the next at the end of the decade.
Well, segueing into iTrust, you wouldn't add meme stocks into your portfolio for clients?
We have a couple. We have a couple that were sort of popular back in the day. These things come and go. We are looking at adding another 20 to 30 tokens and coins on the platform. Again, we have criteria that certain tokens and assets have to meet. We want to make sure they're not securities. Obviously, we want to make sure that they truly are utility, and we want to make sure that that there's the reason that the teams and the vision behind them are reasonable. Some of these we just have a lot of clients saying, "Can you please add these? We would like to have these in our portfolio." And again, it's up to the clients to determine what's best for them. We will be adding some more tokens that I think people will be excited about over the coming several weeks.
Wait, what do you mean? You have to make sure they're not securities. Can you just elaborate on that?
Well, you can hold securities in your IRA. The ERISA Act of 1974 allows you to hold almost anything in your IRA except for art and collectibles. This is for IRAs in America for working professionals. But you can hold securities also in your IRA, but we're not offering or selling securities. So we want to make sure that we're not offering or selling security tokens to our clients. They can have them and they can cut and they can be custody in their IRA, but we're not offering them for sale.
No, I understand that, but I thought all cryptos except Bitcoin were classified as a security by the SEC.
Not our understanding. No,
okay.
Not our understanding. They are evaluating to see which tokens may have been deemed a security at the time of issuance.
Okay.
If they were raising capital for a project that was not completed. But if there's true utility and they weren't raising money and the utility was available day one when you bought into it, it should meet the criteria for a utility token. We want to avoid anything that might be deemed a security token or security coin.
Can you elaborate more on the other criteria you have for vetting tokens, making sure they're legitimate projects and whatnot?
Well, I mean, it's hard to determine what's legitimate and what's not. So, we have access to the same information other people do. We don't have inside information. Sometimes we talk to the teams if these people will have calls with us, but we look at what other large credible exchanges are covering this token. Will our custody providers custody this asset? Can we get liquidity from it from 2 to 4 different liquidity providers? So we're not stuck or beholden to one liquidity provider that may charge more or less in times of uncertainty if there's a lot of volume or less volume. So we look at the big picture. Can we store it? Can we custody it? Is it hopefully not deemed a security, and is there liquidity for it, and are other exchanges offering it, not just us, right? And we want to meet that criteria. We need 2 or 3 of those boxes checked for each category. So it's really important to us. Again, we can't determine what's going to be successful long term. We want people to, if they want to participate in a blockchain economy, we want them to do their own due diligence. These are self-directed IRAs. People are determining what assets are best suited for their long-term retirement needs. And our clients typically are 35 to 60-year-old working professionals across America that have been through multiple cycles. They're not betting the farm. They're mature investors. They're soccer moms and dads like me, sometimes early fanaticals and experts, and sometimes new novices. But we tell everybody, look, do your own due diligence. Make sure you read up on these assets to see if the vision and the mission and the team and their track records match what you think would benefit you in the long term.
All right, great. Tell us about some of the other developments of iTrust. Well, before we do that, just back up. Tell us about the mission of the company first. Why
I mean, look,
that establishes what kinds of assets you hold, right?
yeah, I mean, iTrust Capital, we've been around since 2018. We've got 200,000 accounts. We have 51,000 active clients. We've transacted 9.6 billion in transactions. We've got multiple billions in assets on the platform that are custodied through a qualified custodian, which are regulated financial entities. These are self-directed IRAs, meaning our clients can access the platform and buy and sell precious metals or digital assets 24/7 around the clock, right? That's really important. They can do that on Saturday or Sunday at their kids' soccer or baseball games. They can do it late at night. If the market moves, they can get in and out. We've got we don't have a sales team. We don't pay commissions. We don't make recommendations. We're not a broker dealer. We're a software platform that's highly integrated with some third-party vendors, some of which are regulated financial entities like our qualified custodians, which actually custody the assets. And our job is to make sure that our platform is safe, secure, we're transparent, and we're at the end of the day providing safety, security, and peace of mind. Again, precious metals or digital assets. That's what we do. Our mantra, our vision, our mission is really to enable millions of people to participate in the blockchain economy if they want to, and if they believe there's long-term potential. We want to allow them to participate if they decide to do so.
Are you going to plan to tokenize real life assets as well? Real estate, for example, is a big one that's being tokenized.
We get approached by that question often. We sat on a panel just last week called Tokenize. And we were asked to discuss tokenizing physical assets and other digital assets. The short answer is we actually have tokenized assets on our platform in the form of precious metals. It's an interesting concept, but you don't have to call your broker for precious metals anymore. Get charged an exorbitant fee and not be able to see or take possession of the asset, and not be able to trade or buy or sell this asset when you feel like it around the clock. And so that's the differentiator for us. But yes, the precious metals on our platform, silver and gold, are tokenized through a private blockchain in a partnership with Kitco, custodied by the Royal Canadian Mint. And ironically, and you can access this around the clock, which is interesting, 24/7 without going through a broker. You can see it on your dashboard, and you can take physical distribution of the asset if you decide, which is also really interesting. Some people want to take possession of the silver or gold. Some people need an extra doorstop at home. And so that's an option for people.
So the first question I have is, why do we need tokenized physical metals? I mean, I could buy the physical metals myself. I could buy an ETF, gold ETF or a silver ETF. I could buy the miners. Many ways to expose myself to precious metals, physical included. What are the benefits, if any, of tokenized assets here?
I think it's something that some of our most sophisticated precious metal investors have really appreciated. We get better, more competitive pricing on physical gold than most organizations out there, and we have such great pricing on these assets. We pass it on to the client, and they because of the efficiency created through the Kitco program. It's KITCO, and this program, through, I believe it's Vault Chains technology, and this ledgers the gold and silver utilizing a private blockchain. And so, and then that effectively is tokenizing these physical assets. So it's tracked on the blockchain. You can see it, you can trade it. Our pricing is very transparent. We probably have some of the lowest pricing and markup out there. Try and buy silver or gold through a normal silver and gold shop and see if you can quickly and easily sell it back or take possession of it. It's pretty difficult. And so our silver and gold is ledgered on the blockchain. We get greater efficiencies through this program. I think we're one of the first to do this with Kitco, and it's backed by one-to-one physical precious metals, which technically you could take a distribution of and keep it your safe at home and your safety deposit box. So to my knowledge, that's been a big differentiator. And the fact that you can trade the silver and gold or precious metals around the clock through our dashboard is really another differentiator, and that's really key. So we're getting better pricing, and it's just more transparent.
Excellent. All right. Well, where can we learn more about iTrust?
iTrustCapital.com. We've got tens of thousands of clients. We're onboarding thousands a month, and we'll be adding some more assets soon. We hear our clients. We know we're one of the more boring companies on the spectrum of digital assets, but our job is to keep our platform live and accessible, keep it safe and secure, and make sure that people have enough diversity of assets to choose from, because they are self-directed. These people decide on their own when to transact, a buy or sell, and what to put in their portfolios long term. Again, most of our clients are not betting the farm. They understand the risk, and they are in for the long term. And they believe over the long term, even with volatility, there's some potential for upside, and they're excited to participate. And this, our job is to let them participate and decide what they want to do for themselves.
All right. So if you're watching this right now, click on the link down below or scan the QR code here to learn more about iTrust Capital. Thank you very much, Kevin, for your time today. Thank you for educating us. We'll speak again soon.
Thank you, David. Appreciate your time.
And thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe.